The DJI Pocket 3 easily became my favorite camera of 2024. It has fantastic image quality, great stabilization, and excellent audio options. But what made this my favorite camera actually didn't have to do with any of those. So the question is, what makes the Pocket 3 so good, and is it worth it in 2025? And by the way, this video isn't sponsored by anybody. I purchased this with my own money after my other one got destroyed because it has been such a useful tool for me over the last year and a half, especially for creating YouTube content or just capturing behind the scenes of shoots that I've been on and stuff like that, which I'll show you more of here in a minute. But first, we're almost to our destination. Honestly, one of my favorite features of the Pocket 3 is the active track. The fact that I can have it track me around a scene like this and show off is really sweet, especially if you work by yourself and you film yourself, because then it's almost like having somebody who can film you. And that's why I've been using the Pocket 3 to film a ton of my YouTube videos over the last year and a half or whatever since it came out, because it just made filming so easy. And it's not just the fact that you can active track, which is super useful, but you can set it up to where you active track from one side or the other, or a specific area on the screen to get the look that you want. Like if you want to lead something through a scene, like this shot here, then it shows you, it gives it a little bit more weighted to one side or the other, which makes it look a little bit better than just center active track like I am right now. But even just handheld, the active track works incredibly well because it keeps you in the frame. And you don't really have to worry about, like, am I holding it in the right spot? Or am I turning it enough? Because it's just going to keep you right exactly where you need to be in the frame the entire time. It takes a lot of work off of you. But one of my favorite ways to use active track is just getting environmental scenic shots of places that I'm walking through, like this glacier here, or this one right here where we are right now. And by the way, this is the business end of a glacier, which means this is the part that is falling off as it moves and flows downhill into water. And contrary to popular belief, glaciers are always moving. Winter, summer, doesn't matter. They are always moving. So this will still have big pieces calve off of it while we are here. I wouldn't get any closer than where I am right now. In fact, this might be just a little too close if a really large piece comes off. But if you come out to a place like this, or you ever get the chance to visit a glacier that's feeding into water, don't get too close to the business end. Another thing that I love about the Pocket 3 is the field of view. You get this nice 20mm field of view. Right now I'm like 3 feet away from the camera, but you still get really nice environmental framing where you can see a lot of what's going on around you, which is great. But the thing that makes the Pocket 3 look like a much more expensive camera than it actually is the fact that when I get close, the background blurs out. You can still see the background, but because I'm in focus, it makes you just focus on the subject. Super useful, and that's part of what makes the Pocket 3 such a great little camera, is the fact that it actually has this little focus system. So if I'm standing farther away, everything's in focus and it all looks good. But the closer I get, the more the background fades away and becomes a little bit out of focus, which just makes it look so much better than it should. And that brings us to image quality. Image quality is fantastic for what it is. You can film 4K up to 120 frames a second in slow motion. If you don't want to do slow motion, then you film 4K up to 60 frames a second. which is super useful. It's what I've been filming most of this video in because it just gives you really, really great footage. But the fact that it films in 10-bit D-Log-M gives you a massive range that you can use to color grade this camera and make it match to pretty much anything else you're shooting with. And because of that, you can get really great, really incredibly rich and bold colors out of this if you grade it well. And if you want something that's really easy to grade, I do have a pack of LUTs that works really well with the Pocket 3. They're linked down in the description. And this is where we need to talk about dynamic range, because while this camera does have incredibly good dynamic range for what it is, it's still limited. I mean, it's a small sensor, but if you look at the shot here, I'm walking and the camera's pointed directly at the sun. Now, straight out of camera, this is what it looks like. You could expose it different ways if you wanted to, but then in post, you can bring the shadows up or the midtones up and make it look like you want. So far, everything you've seen in this video has been recorded in D-Log-M. Now, this is normal, but interestingly, shortly after launch, DJI added a normal 10-bit option, so this is normal 10-bit, which, if you don't want to color grade, like, this looks great. Really solid colors, very natural colors, you know, nice blend of contrasty and punchy, vibrant colors, but not over the top. Really nice. And then if you want to shoot in a higher dynamic range, this is HLG. Honestly, I don't see a huge difference between HLG and D-Log-M, so I just generally shoot in D-Log-M. But if you're somebody who likes to shoot in HLG, you have the option. And we will get into low light here in just a sec, because this camera actually does very well in low light. But before we do that, we have to talk about stabilization, because the way the Pocket 3 stabilizes, because it actually has a physical gimbal, makes it that you just get this really incredibly good smooth footage. This shot that you're seeing right here was me running, holding the Pocket 3 behind John as he was biking, and you can see just how stable it is, which is insane because I'm running on ice, trying not to fall, but it still gives you this beautifully smooth, incredibly well stabilized shot. And this comes into play when you're working in low light. In low light, a lot of action cameras stabilize by using what they see coming in. They analyze the image and then they stabilize it based on that and through gyro data that it gets. But this can lead to really weird blurry images or weird movements and vibrations because of what it's trying to do. The Pocket 3 will stabilize perfectly in low light. It doesn't matter because it actually has a gimbal. But there is one situation where this works against the Pocket 3, and that's in motion in vehicles. Because the Pocket 3 is stabilizing based on what it feels the IMUs are doing, whether it's being pulled left or right or straight up and down, then it will tend to drift one way or the other depending on what's going on. So if you're driving in a car, going around a corner, you'll see the horizon start to tilt one way or the other. Now, it's a minor inconvenience, but that's where action cameras actually do a little better, is because they're a physically fixed camera, they don't suffer from that same problem. But beyond that, the stabilization in the Pocket 3 is just absolutely incredible for such a small camera. Now on the stabilization's only as good as how well you hold it. So I've had a lot of people ask me, how do I get rid of the up and down motion, which you can see a little bit in my running shot. The answer is walk softly as much as you can and then hold the pocket to where you have some movement in your arm. So you can kind of counteract your movement and just try and hold it as fluidly as possible. So that way you don't get this as much and you get more of a nice smooth shot. But then we need to talk about low light. And fortunately, I found a spot. For low light, you have to be realistic. This is still a small sensor camera, but the Pocket 3 does do really well in low light. Right now, it's pretty dang low light in here. And I've used this camera way beyond probably where it should go. And if you do set it at -2 sharpening and -2 noise reduction, and then sharpen and reduce noise in post, you actually can get some really clean imagery all the way up to about ISO 1600, maybe even 3200, depending on what you're filming. But the fact that this small of a camera can actually give you usable low light in something like this, if you ever happen to be in a glacier ice cave, or even if you're just walking around the streets at night, Pocket 3, for its size, does have really, really good low light. And that's largely thanks to that 1-inch sensor. How spectacular is this ice cave? Also, it's not the safest one I've been in, so I think maybe we should go out. And then we need to talk about vertical video. Now, I don't shoot a lot of vertical video, but the Pocket 3 will shoot vertical video like I'm doing right now, where it is cropping in on the sensor. It's giving you a 3K image, basically up to 60 frames a second. That's an easy way to shoot vertical. You don't have to mess with the gimbal at all. But you can also just hold the gimbal sideways, like you see here, and also shoot vertical video that way. There's a couple of things that gives you an advantage and a disadvantage of doing that. The advantage is that you get a wider field of view. Here you can see side by side the normal vertical video, which is the cropped in mode, and then me holding the gimbal sideways. You can see that you get a much wider field of view if you hold the gimbal sideways. The downside of that is the gimbal's meant to work in a certain orientation, so it doesn't always do what you want it to do when you're holding it vertically. The ways to mitigate that are put it in follow mode and stuff like that, but yeah, it does shoot really great vertical video. And of course, if you want to, like, you can active track in vertical video mode, and I think pretty much do everything else you're doing in vertical video mode. One of the best features about the Pocket 3 is the seamless integration with DJI's microphones, the little wireless microphones they sell. So if you get the Creator Combo, you get the DJI Mic 2, but if you don't want to spend that much, then just buy a Mic Mini. They're about 50 bucks. But right now you're hearing the DJI Mic 2. I'm a couple hundred feet away with a lapel plugged in and sitting just inside my hat here. But one of the best things they added was a firmware update that allowed you to also record the internal mics at the same time, which is what you're hearing right now. And now I'm back to the lapel mic and a mix of the other mic audio as well. The best thing that I found, this was set up to be this was set up to be a backup recording. So like if something happened, the DJI mic battery died or something like that, you would still have a recording. But I found it really useful for environmental noise. So if you just want to get some nice, noise that sounds like what it is, if you do the ASMR type videos or something like that, then this really isn't a bad deal. But having good, clean, clear audio, no matter what, with the DJI Mic 2, and no matter how close or how far away from the camera you are, really makes this a really useful tool. And it's like pretty much all I've been using to record most of my YouTube videos outdoors, because it's just such a great system and it gives you such great clean audio regardless of the wind I'm in or the other conditions I'm in. Hey, if you're enjoying or getting value out of this video, then consider subscribing. I go out and test and compare filmmaking equipment in the most rugged real world conditions I can find here in Alaska where I live, and I give you tips and tutorials on how to use it. While this isn't really a photo camera, it only takes 9 megapixel stills because it's a 1-inch sensor, and those 9 megapixels are partly why you get such good low light performance. But the Pocket 3 does take pretty nice photos, and they're more than enough for sharing on social media. All these photos are taken with the Pocket 3, and yeah, so like, yes, your phone will probably take better photos now because if you have a newer phone, they all do, but the photos coming out of the Pocket 3 are actually really nice. And you can do these 180-degree panos and ultra-wide photos, which are really fun when you're in a place like an ice cave and you want to make it look really big and wide. Those ultra-wide photos really do come through. And the panos also, like, they look really solid. And they're one of my favorite ways to do it, because then you get this super amazing, huge field of view with the using the Pocket 3, and it stitches them together for you, puts them out there, and then you're good to go. So while I wouldn't recommend this camera if you're going to do a lot of photo work, I would recommend something else. It does take good photos. And that brings us to battery life and durability, which the Pocket 3 is way more durable than I first thought it was going to be when I first got it. when DJI sent me the original one. I took mine in well below 0 temperatures. It fell over a bunch. It got wet inside glacier ice caves. It got rained on and snowed on. And finally, what messed it up was the shoot I was doing for Caterpillar. We were using it as an angle to capture these glass panes. And when it broke and all the tempered glass hit it, it just basically messed up the focus system so it wouldn't focus in infinity. I'm amazed at how much of use my Pocket 3. It literally has gone everywhere with me. It probably flew 100,000 something air miles, and it withstood pretty much everything I threw at it and just kept going, which is amazing. For a little tiny gimbal camera, it really could handle some serious abuse. Now, that's not to say that, like, you know, if you get it rained on in just the right spot, that it wouldn't, you know, totally stop working. It absolutely could. It's electronic, it's a gimbal, it's fragile. You do have to be careful, but mine withstood a lot. And then we come to battery life. And battery life is very subjective on what you're doing with it, the frame rates you're filming in it, how hard the gimbal is working, how cold it is outside, which right now it's single-digit temperatures, so I'm not getting great battery life. That being said, I ran pretty much everything up to just a few minutes ago on one battery handle extension. And so, you know, getting a couple of hours off of the battery and the battery handle extension works really well. And it will keep the camera battery charged and deplete the battery handle first, and then the camera battery will start to discharge. Now, the cool thing is that you can also recharge the whole system rapidly up to 80% in like 15 minutes or 20 minutes. I don't remember exactly what, but I'll put it on the screen here. And so you can get back up and running really quick. So I've got a USB power bank in here, and I just plug the battery handle in and get it charging without it being attached to the camera. It will charge all by itself, so super nice. So you can get really good run times. Generally, when I go out and do stuff like this, unless it's super cold like it is right now, I just run with one battery extension handle, and that is more than enough for me to get everything I need to film an entire YouTube video throughout most of a day of hiking and running around. Now, you might be thinking the Pocket 3 is very near the perfect camera, and it is really good, but there are a few things that drive me crazy about it, and I want to make sure you're aware of those so that if you're looking to buy this camera in 2025, you know, you can make up your mind. One is the focus system. It is not a tracking focus system, so it just kind of goes based on whatever is in front of it. And it's also very quick and jerky. I wish there was a way to slow it down and have it be a little bit smoother in the way it goes from like far focus to near focus. That's pretty minor, and so long as you have somebody or something in the frame where it should be toward the center, then you actually do get a really nice controlled focus, but it's just a little faster than I would like. This is the other thing that drives me crazy, is this message when you are using the transmitter stays on the screen for forever. I wish it was like 1 or 2 seconds, and that's it. That's all I need to know that the mic is connected. I don't need a full, whatever that was, 7-8 seconds of it telling me that it's connected. And while you can do a 2x zoom in camera, and it actually looks pretty decent, I basically indistinguishable from me cropping in 2 times in post. So however DJI is doing that, they're doing a really good job, but I do wish there was a way to have other, you know, more powerful focal lengths available. Maybe that'll come in the Pocket 4. That would be really cool if there was something like a 40 to 50 millimeter focal length and then the 20 millimeter. So is the DJI Pocket 3 worth it in 2025? Yes, and here's why. Beyond everything I've shown you in this video, what makes this camera so amazing and so fantastic is the fact that it is super easy to use. This is exactly how I've been using it for the last year. Pull it out, turn it on, and start filming. No ND filters, no nothing special, no anything that I need to do for anything like that. And there are great setup and tutorial videos about how to get the most out of this, lock your exposure, lock your white balance, which I didn't even do in some of this video. But this camera is just one of the easiest cameras to run around, film with, and get great looking footage. And being able to do all the other stuff that I showed you in this video is really just a bonus. So if you're interested in picking one up, there are links down in the description. They're affiliate links. They help me do what I do because, like I said, this video isn't sponsored. And there's some other links down there of other products that I use that you can check out as well. But next, you're going to want to watch this video right here, which shows how Pocket 3 and an Action 5 compare to each other. I'll see you over there. As always, if you have questions, ask me in the comments below or join my live stream, which happens most Wednesday nights at 4 p.m. Alaska time, 8 p.m. Eastern, at least if I'm not out in a place like this where there's no cell phone service. I'll see you again soon in the next one. Just got a quick 3 miles back.